I made a build with 100 resilience, recovery, discipline, and strength. So in this video, I'll go over how I got all these high stats and how you can too with relatively low effort. I'm Marshix, and the first step to unlocking quadruple 100 builds is determining which 4 stats you want. I'm a Warlock main, so I prioritize recovery, then resilience, then discipline, then strength. Mobility doesn't really matter in PvE, especially when Amplify exists, and intellect isn't too impactful in PvE since most of your super energy comes from killing enemies and dealing damage. There is one limitation to which stats you can choose though. Because of how stats are distributed on armor, 2 of your stats need to be in the top group and the other 2 need to be in the bottom group. It is a little more complicated than that, but if you're going for 4 100 stats, that's all you really need to know. Now that you've decided on your 4 main stats, you want to equip a ghost with an armor mod. This will make it so all armor you receive will drop with a minimum of 10 in whichever stat you choose. So choose any of your 4 stats, and this will help you passively earn better gear as we do all the other steps. And every so often, it's nice to swap this out with another stat so you can get some more varied gear. Step 3 is start collecting high stat armor. Legendary armor can drop with a maximum of 68 total stats before any upgrades, and exotic armor can drop with 70 total stats before any upgrades. People have argued with me many times in the past saying those numbers are wrong, but conveniently, none of them have ever shown proof. Anyway, you want to get a bunch of armor with high stat totals that prioritize your 4 chosen stats. Like this piece, which has 2 mobility and 2 intellect, the minimum you can get, and everything else is in my main stats. So pretty much nothing is being wasted here. But how do you get this high stat armor? Well, you can get them from a ton of different activities, including any powerful or pinnacle drop, dungeons, raids, and even fail-safe. All you have to do is play the seasonal content to unlock the armor for the first time, then you can focus your echo engrams into any armor you want, but be careful. The armor engram on the left is cheaper, but in my experience, this will only drop low stat totals, or at least it seems like that. But if you buy the individual piece, it's almost always mid to high 60s, so it's definitely worth the cost. This is the easiest way to get high stat armor, since echo engrams drop from basically every activity. So just play the game like normal to stock up on a ton of these over time, then turn them into failsafe for some really good armor. And this also works with the Pale Heart armor, but it seems to be a lot less common. I purchased about 8 pieces of armor and only 1 was in the upper 60s. But regardless, if you already have all the Pale Heart weapons crafted, there's no reason not to buy this armor, even if it is just a chance. Another good source of armor that a lot of people forget about is the final boss in Pit of Heresy. This boss is really easy to kill, and it's really fast to farm if you have a teammate to pass the checkpoint to. Each time you kill this boss, you will get an armor piece with 2 guaranteed stat spikes, meaning 2 stats will have a minimum of 16 with a chance of being higher. It's not guaranteed to be perfect, but it is way more likely to fit into your final build, and it's just really easy to get. You can do this once per character per week, or if you wait until Pit of Heresy is the featured dungeon, you can farm this over and over on the same character. But I can't stress this enough, it's only when it's the featured dungeon. Those are the easy sources of high stat armor, but if you're a mega sweat, you may consider Master Dungeons. Master Dungeons can drop with high stat armor with an Artifice slot. This will allow you to equip a 3-point stat mod completely for free. The only downside is that you have to farm Master Dungeons. While this is mathematically the best legendary armor in the game, master content takes so much longer and requires 2 other people who are willing to farm it. So if that's something you're interested in, go for it, but don't think it's a requirement for triple or quadruple 100 builds. It does make it slightly easier, but it's not a requirement. It's way better to have a large variety of good armor rather than just a few pieces of artifice armor. And like I mentioned before, all exotics can drop with high stat totals, so you can farm up a bunch of exotic engrams from solo lost sectors and then focus them at the Cryptarch to get a bunch of high stat rolls on the exact armor you want. For instance, I'm making a getaway artist build, but all my getaway artists suck. So I went to the Cryptarch and bought a few in an attempt to get some higher rolls. Luckily, I got this piece, which was a 69 roll with the 4 stats I want. So with this, I should have an easier time getting quadruple 100s with the fragments that I want. Now that you have your high stat armor and your high stat exotic, it's time to upgrade it. Upgrading your armor will cost you enhancement cores, enhancement prisms, and ascendant shards. But once they're fully masterworked, each piece will receive a +2 in every stat for a total of +12 to each piece. This will also allow you to equip a 10-point stat mod in each piece, so you can fill in the gaps with whichever stats you need for the build. And another cool thing about exotics is that they now have an artifice slot if you fully masterwork them, and spend 1 exotic cipher. This artifice slot will raise any stat by 3 points, which means exotics can now get up to 95 total stats, a lot higher than legendaries. Armor does make up the majority of your stats, but not all of them. You can also get stats through your subclass fragments. Some of them give you a plus 10 to certain stats, some give you a plus 20, and some can even take away stats. Normally, these are used to balance the fragments, so weaker fragments will add stats, while stronger fragments will remove stats. However, with Prismatic, a lot of really good fragments also have stats tied to them, and we can now equip up to 6 different fragments. So up to 60 additional stats on top of the armor stats. That's crazy. Another secret way to get free stats is this armor ornament. The Solstice Rekindled chest piece gives you 1 free resilience whenever you have it equipped. This goes for all characters. I know 1 resilience doesn't sound like much, but this build would be sitting at 99 resilience if it wasn't for this to push it over to the next tier. You can also get invisible stats through a bunch of different weapons, armor, and abilities. Once again, these won't show up on the character screen because they are not permanent effects, but most of these will be active 99% of the time, so you might as well factor them into your build. Lightweight weapons. You get a plus 20 mobility when you're holding a lightweight weapon in your hand. 2 excess origin trait. Plus 20 discipline and plus 20 strength on kills when your super is full. Land tank origin trait. Plus 10 resilience per kill, stacking up to 3 times. Killing Wind. Plus 50 mobility and some other stuff. Dragon Shadow. Plus 50 mobility after dodging. Peacekeepers. Plus 50 mobility when holding an SMG, and this does stack with lightweight SMGs for a total of plus 70 mobility. Whisper of Hedrons. Plus 60 mobility, resilience, and recovery after freezing something. Echo of Domineering. Plus 30 mobility after suppressing someone, in addition to the 10 discipline it shows on the bottom. And the most impactful invisible stats come from font mods. Font mods can also increase your stats. There are 6 of these, and each of them will increase their respective stats, but only while you have armor charges. And these mods can stack, so 1 copy gives you plus 30 to that stat, 2 copies give you plus 50, and 3 copies give plus 60. These stats won't show up on your character screen since they aren't permanent, and they take up your mod slots, so I only recommend using these if you aren't able to get quadruple 100s naturally. If the best you can get is 2 100s and 2 70s, you might as well throw on 1 or 2 of these mods to top it off. But I don't recommend using any more than just 1 or 2, because they can start taking away from significant portions of your build. Okay, the next step is to go to d2armorpicker.com, where they will calculate every possible combination of gear on your account and show you every combination of stat spreads that are possible. First, I scrolled down to the settings and enabled assume all items are masterworked, assume every exotic has an artifice slot, and add a constant plus 1 resilience. This is to factor in the armor ornament I mentioned a minute ago. If you don't have it, leave it blank. Scroll back up, then I'm going to select Getaway Artist and get all the fragments I want to use. In my build, I'm going to be consuming an arc grenade to create an arc soul and a stasis turret. Those are going to give me Devour through Feed the Void, and then I'm going to do the best to just spam my abilities and go Transcendence as much as possible. So for this build, I'm using Facet of Courage to make my grenade, super, and arc soul deal more damage to anything hit by my stasis turret, Facet of Devotion to get extra light energy by killing anything hit by my stasis turret, Facet of Sacrifice to get extra darkness energy each time I get an ability kill while I have either Amplify or Devour, which is basically all the time with Getaway Artist, Facet of Protection for damage reduction whenever I'm near multiple enemies. This is just nice to have in every build. And for the final fragment, I would go with Facet of Balance, but it doesn't provide any stats, and I'm just a few recovery off of 100. So for the sake of quad 100s, I'm going to go with Facet of Defiance to get that extra 10 recovery, and I'll work towards adding that in the future. So I put these into the website, and as you can see, I can now put in 4 100s with Getaway Artist. I'm going to select the one with the highest max tiers, which is 43, then copy dim query to clipboard, paste it into dim, drag over all the armor, put in the correct stat mods, equip the ornament on my chest piece, and just like that, I have max resilience, max recovery, max discipline, and max strength. After playing with this all day, this has quickly become my favorite build. All of my abilities come back at max speed, I have constant Devour to push my grenade regen even further, I have constant Amplify, so it doesn't even matter that my mobility is only 18, and I have 2 elemental buddies that make me Transcendent. If you want to see details on the full build, I'll leave a link to it in the description. Now, after reading my comments, some of you are stupid. So here's a quick summary of everything we went over. Determine which 4 stats you want in your build, equip a ghost armor mod to influence your armor drops, grind the game for high stat armor, or just passively earn echo engrams that turn them into high stat armor at failsafe. Then head over to D2 Armor Picker to find the perfect combination of armor, upgrade the armor, and now you have double, triple, or even quadruple 100s. Now, if you want to see more builds like this, check out this video where I go over the best exotic combos in the final shape. Thanks for watching, I'm Marshix, and I'll see you next time.